Hi everyone, we're here in Overbrook in my colleague Ralston King's community. We met with staff earlier this week and I wanted to share with you exciting projects that are happening here as it relates to Ottawa community housing. I'm sorry in advance, it's quite loud. There are two construction projects. Along Preston, the city's redoing the street, and right here behind me, their contractors are working on the property. We're meeting with Dan and Lisa, both amazing employees at Ottawa Community Housing. Lisa's going to share with us the redevelopment objectives and plans for Ottawa Community Housing here in Overbrook, and Dan's going to share with us the energy retrofit that's happening right here. It's a pilot project. It's exciting. And finally, I have great news to share with you. This week at Ottawa Community Housing Board, we're looking at a complete net zero community. This is a brand new community that we're working in Councillor McKenney's ward at Gladstone Village.
Hi, my name is Dan Zakai. I'm the Manager of Energy and Conservation at Ottawa Community Housing.
Hi everyone, I'm with Dan Zakai. He does amazing work at Ottawa Community Housing. Dan, thank you for taking your time this morning to join me. Dan, good morning. Thanks for taking the time this morning.
Well, thank you for having me, Mathieu.
We have a really special project. I've been following it along with internal emails and memos. Share with us what's happening here in Overbrook on Preston Street.
Well, so this is the Preston prefabricated exterior energy retrofit. Basically what we're doing is taking these four homes, this one block of townhomes, and transforming it to net zero by recovering the entire building with insulation and then adding solar panels to the roof.
And this work is a partnership between Ottawa Community Housing and Natural Resources Canada. Share with us what's the partnership all about.
Well, so it started many years ago, almost 4 years ago, with a research project where they were trying to adapt a European model for this type of exterior retrofit called Energy Sprong, adapting it to a Canadian climate, or a Canadian context. So we offered our buildings as kind of the templates in order to do this retrofit. We did a lot of research, and then when we got to the end of the project, we basically said, well, let's actually do it. And then we also went to Natural Resources Canada to get funding in order to actually be able to be doing this. So OCH is putting in half of the funding, and Natural Resources Canada is putting in the other half of the funding, because this is work that is pertinent for the rest of Canada. We need to be doing this to a lot more buildings throughout Canada. What we're doing is we're literally putting a nice thick coat on top of the building. So we've gone all the way down to the foundation, we've waterproofed the foundation to eliminate any water issues, and added some extra insulation to the outside. Then when we get above grade, we have built these prefabricated panels. They are basically 8 inches of insulation, and we made these panels that are 20 by 9 feet, and they are complete with insulation as well as an airtight membrane, and then the strapping and the siding. And we have the windows and the doors already cut out of all of these panels, and we brought them in with a crane to be able to sit them right on top. And then we do that for the entire side, and then we go to the second floor and we do the same thing over. So we end up with, we're basically adding almost like 10 to 12 inches of insulation all the way up, and then we go across the roof and keep doing the same thing. We're adding a new roof on top. It's going to have about 16 inches of insulation all the way in that space. Ultimately, it reduces the heating load for the building, right? The amount of energy that is required to do the space conditioning. That means that we go inside after and we replace the natural gas furnace. We get to put a heat pump electric furnace because we've reduced the heating load so much that we can do it with a much smaller, much more efficient piece of equipment. Then we also get to eliminate all the natural gas that's going into the building. So we've not only made it more energy efficient using less energy, but we've also eliminated all of the GHG emissions from the building, because we're also taking out the natural gas hot water tank and putting in a heat pump water tank as well. Before, this entire building is 4 units. We're spending about $7,000 on utilities every single year. By doing this, we've reduced the space heating load by 80%, and we've reduced the domestic hot water load, energy load. And then we're going to add the solar panels on top. So we're basically we've reduced that load, and the small amount of energy we need to consume, we're going to be producing with the solar panels. So effectively,
we reduced 80% of the energy. That's massive. And then of that, we're creating energy off the solar panel, which covers the additional 20%.
That's exactly it.
So Dan, you talked to us about the energy components of the project. You talked about the research. What does it really mean for OCH and the portfolio when you consider this type of retrofit?
Well, so OCH, we've got 6,000 of these townhouse units, right? And they're all about that same vintage. They all need this improvement for energy efficiency, especially if we're talking about reducing our GHG emissions to meet the climate change master plan.
It's exciting. We have 6,000 units. There's a potential here to do something big. We can learn from each other, work with the private sector, and share this knowledge across the country.
Absolutely.
So Lisa, thank you for taking the time. We just met with Dan, who shared with us the project down the street, a pretty significant upgrade in energy efficiency. You have an interesting role in this entire project. You're looking at the entire Overbrook community, the portfolio of Ottawa community housing. Tell us about this endeavor.
So most of the units in the Overbrook area were built about 70 years ago. So they're getting to the end of their life cycle, and we have to come up with a plan for what's next. So what Dan's doing is potentially something that could be done for some of the buildings that have good bones in them, but there's going to be other areas where we're going to look at that potentially with the new official plan and the proximity to LRT might make sense for a redevelopment to help with increasing the affordable housing units that we have in this community across the city as well.
You held a recent community meeting. That was the first, so the community in Overbrook is quite engaged in the renewal of the community. Obviously our intent is to ensure that all the families that are in the neighborhood stay in the neighborhood through this transition. What could we share with the general public in terms of OCH's effort and sort of general timelines of this review?
Yeah, so we just kicked it off, and what that first meeting did was introduce the idea that Overbrook is being looked at for redevelopment. We don't necessarily have timelines yet. With a project this scale, we have to take a sort of a bird's eye view and determine where we're going to start, look at all the different components such as infrastructure capacity, as well as proximity to schools, and from a phasing perspective, where can we start that we can increase number of units and then move people that are the next phase potentially into that first, so people can stay in this community because a lot of people do like it.
What's next for the community? Obviously, you're leading the project. There's a lot of elements that are technical, looking at city services, for example. You talked about zoning. There's a tenant engagement. There's a community engagement side. So you're building a full project here.
Exactly. So the next step we're doing is we're trying to put together a survey that's going to go out to the residents, our tenants, as well as the community at large, to sort of get an understanding of where they see this community in 15 years. What would they like to see in Overbrook? What do they currently like about Overbrook? Where are some places to improve it? And then from that, we'll be able to come up with that overall plan and start hunkering down on a specific area to start bringing that vision into actual reality.
People are listening in, want to learn more. What's the best way to communicate with you?
So the best way is there is actually an Overbrook newsletter that you can sign up for through the OCH's website. So you can go on there. I think if you just type in Overbrook into a search engine, it should pop up. And provide us your email address, and everything's going to be coming through an email distribution list, and that's going to start pretty much kick off in the new year. So this is a two-story semi that we are going to actually bridge some of the stuff that Dan is doing. So the front of this building is going to remain, but we'll get the panels from the Pier project, so to increase the energy efficiency on the existing units. But what we're also going to be able to do, because we have the ability that the backyard is actually our project as well, we are actually going to be putting two...
Right, we own units on the other side, so we actually have two rear yards in some ways.
And we're going to actually double this up, so we're going to add 2 additional units to the back of this unit, so it's essentially going to become a back-to-back quad, for lack of a better term, and the units themselves will be slightly bigger in size, but also family-size units.
So there's an opportunity to retrofit, bring more efficiency, more resiliency to these homes, and increase the number of units while protecting each other's privacy through this project. That's another kind of a component to the Overbrook overall plan.
Yeah,